Hey everybody, welcome back to Automation Tech Talk lunchtime edition. I had a little issue earlier, so I watched the replay. Everything looked great. So again, I want to thank you for hanging out with me at lunchtime. I also want to thank those folks who've reached out to me about actually being a guest on the lunchtime show. I really appreciate that. And it's nice to actually hear what other people are doing, right? And we got some pretty cool guests lined up. I also had some vendors who maybe they're not ready to sponsor an episode of the podcast, but they just want to tell us the cool things they're doing. And so inviting them on as well. Just trying to share everything I've learned and help people share what they've learned over the years during lunchtime, right? When we all get to take a break from all the serious stuff, trying to make money to pay the bills and all that. So in any case, with that said, I'm assuming, I guess I've just deleted the original 5-minute live stream because things didn't seem like they were working. So I got a couple of things I was talking about in that live stream. Number one is that big box in the middle of the training room, that is some hardware for the add-on lessons I'm going to be adding. I have a lot of different hardware here from all kinds of different vendors, and we'll be adding those as bonus lessons, add-on lessons to the courses. So if you're in any of my level 1 or 2, do I still have the automation school up? So if you're in my level 1 or 2 courses, level 1 and 2 courses, I should say that correctly, over at theautomationschool.com, you will get those add-on lessons at no charge. And plus there's some other courses you're going to be getting at no charge as well, as I kind of mix things up. And I think I covered that over at the Automation School in the updates for each of the courses. Also, I ran across somebody on Reddit who was looking, they're like, what do I need to get started? I'm like, hey, lesson 102 in all my courses is free, and all my PLC courses, and it tells you everything you need to know to get started programming PLCs, software options, hardware options, demo options. So if you know anybody looking to get started and they don't know where to start, like how much does Rockwell software cost, and is it free, and can I get a free demo, and how about for Siemens, and what starter packs are available, I cover that all, and I make that lesson free, because quite honestly, I don't want anybody signing up for a course and then be like, oh, I didn't want to do a simulated PLC. I wanted to do a real PLC, and I can't afford it. So I want everybody to know up front what the costs are. For a lot of people, it's not an issue. They get a bunch of PLCs in the software at work, and they're going to do it during their lunchtime. But in any case, I did want to share that with you. And now I want to talk about the second generation of CompactLogix. Let's see here. Yes, CompactLogix. This is where I got to put the old glasses on. And let's see if I can go here. Okay, great. And so let's see if I can zoom in. I don't want to zoom in on both cameras, just the overhead one. And so you might be asking, Sean, why do you have all this hardware in the test stand? That's because I am filming the new 2025 courses. So I got a lot of wiring to do, but there's no getting around that. So we talked about generation 1. Let me see if I can slide this a little bit, maybe forward. So, Sean, don't push it off the table. That would be bad. Okay, so if we look at these 3 controllers, let's see here. Maybe I can move them this way a little bit. Okay, this is what we call the second generation of CompactLogix controllers. I don't know that Rockwell ever called it that, but it kind of makes sense because you can see these are all very similar, right? And they all came out around the same time after the, and I just can't look at the camera with everything appearing backwards to me and make them straight. But in any case, these were the 3 options. Now, this first guy, I had some OEMs buy these, and they were very unhappy because just the speed of the serial ports. Yeah, it was great. You had 2 serial ports, one that could be connected to, an HMI, and the other one could be for programming. But it was just really slow. So, yeah, you could muddle through some online edits, but uploads and downloads, for the impatient Northeasterner like me, it was kind of tough. It was like, yeah, we used to call those coffee downloads. You'd go grab a cup of coffee while it downloaded and hope nobody pulled the, and then you had to flash the firmware. Of course, you had to flash every one. So flashing the firmware via serial is a very dangerous prospect, because if anybody breaks the connection, you could end up with a brick, an unusable PAC. Although these days, that I think Rockwell has figured out ways to resolve that. I think one of the ways they do that, and don't quote me on this, but talking to product people over the years, is they put like a basic firmware on the unit. So if the firmware is corrupt, it'll just load like 1.x, which is just like a stub. It can't really program it in 1.x. But in any case, so this is the L31. And let's see if I can get a little closer here. You guys can see that. And this is, I don't know if you can see it on there. Let me take a look at it myself. It should say somewhere on here 5331, but it doesn't. I'm sure it says it somewhere. Let's see. Let me find. Ah, there it is. Okay. I found it. And again, so you can see it on the label right there. If you can't see it, no worries. But in any case, 5331. There was also a 53, 32, and 35. I think I have both of these 35s, right? So the difference between, I'm going to have to fix this backwards thing. It's killing me. The difference between the 32 and the 35s are just memory, how much I/O they can support. But there were also, of the 32 and 35, there were also ControlNet versions and Ethernet versions. Now they kept because they didn't have a USB port in their PLCs at this time. They kept the serial port, and serial ports are great for, serial ports are great for third-party products, barcode readers, ASCII. You could do DH45 with them and all that good stuff, right? But in any case, it would be better to have USB, right? And the new Gen 3s had Gen 4 had USBs. But in any case, what else do we have here? So a lot of people get confused with the ControlNet. So the ControlNet's unique because it has the ControlNet ports coming out the bottom. Now the L35C, it was actually a CR because it had 2 ControlNet ports. The L32C only had 1 ControlNet port. So you couldn't do redundant media with that guy. But in any case, ControlNet really confused a lot of people. It was very easy to use, but the software cost quite a bit of money, right? And so RS Networks for ControlNet was expensive. And I think that's what eventually led to its downfall. Plus, Ethernet just became, Ethernet's built into every laptop. You didn't need an expensive ControlNet card, right? So in any case, I think ControlNet was very fast. If you're running Ethernet at 10 meg or ControlNet at 5 meg or even Ethernet at 100 meg and ControlNet at 5 meg, ControlNet was so efficient that you could really do this, get as much data through. However, ControlNet was scheduled, right? So that you were scheduling the data to show up every so often, kind of like how your RPIs are for the backplane when you put IO modules in the backplane. And I always liked it. I always thought it was easy. A lot of people would try to make their own cables and, the coax cables, and they wouldn't do a good job. I went to some places where like, this lousy piece of junk keeps falling off the network. And when you open up, and first of all, they have the coax, RG6 coax, and it's going into like a 1 or 2 inch, 1.5 inch piece of panduit, right? And it's like making a right turn, right? And there's a bend radius to these things, right? And so it's going, and a lot of times it would be right at the connector. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why your network's intermittent. Here, let me try it. You shake it and it'd be like, oh, on, off. It's like, really, you got to have some common sense, people. And so a lot of times engineers don't see inside the panduit. They just order a panel and expect it to come in and work. And so, sad but funny now after the fact. But a lot of people would get upset because, they would self-crimp their connectors with not using, the expensive tools, the $100 tool, $150 tool. They'd go buy a $5 tool and expect it to work and last forever. And you just kind of wonder, what kind of stresses they have in their life to actually think that, because, if you're doing professional work, you use professional tools. Don't play around with anything that's out of your kid's toy box, okay? So in any case, and I'm having a lot of fun with that, but in any case, yeah, you'd see that a lot. So, I've bought pre-crimped cables and never had a problem with them. Again, you gotta be cognizant of the bend radiuses of RG6. But in any case, this port here confused a lot of people because it looked like a Ethernet port, and it's not. It's a network access port. Just like the RJ45 and a 503 is not an Ethernet port, it's a DH45 port. And you got to be careful on that one. It has power in it, but we're not talking 6500s today. So in any case, this unit wasn't very popular. I had a hard time getting one, and just lucked upon this one here. And you can see I got a commercial grade because this isn't a facility. There's no problems with downtime. I can't get it out of there. There we go. So I just have a commercial grade SanDisk compact flash in there because I'm not running a machine that's making millions of dollars for the company. With that said, then we have the L35, and this is the L35 and L32 were the most popular. On the outside, they looked identical. They have the Ethernet port and extremely popular. And yes, this Ethernet port could control I/O, and that just made it super, super popular, and really became. We sold a lot of L32s and L35s over the years. So many people I know used dozens, if not hundreds, of them in their plants. Really good for the small OEM. Some users, small users don't have the budget of the big factory would use them. Just great. And everybody, I always liked the 1769 IO, the way it connected and everything like that. So in any case, that is the L31, 2 serial ports, the L32 and L35. They both look the same, either ControlNet or Ethernet. And again, 5331, 5332, and 35, depending which one you got. Again, I have 2 35s here because I have one in ControlNet, one in Ethernet. But 32 just has less memory and less capabilities, right? So I want to show you another product that I consider part of the second generation of CompactLogix. And the reason is it pretty much supports the same firmwares and same features as those other guys. Let me get it on here. And okay, here we go. All right, so this is the L23. This particular one was donated by a very good customer of mine. Thank you very much, RK. I really appreciate it. And at least, I mean, it's been a dozen years now, so I think he's the one that donated it. I'm pretty sure. But in any case, so this, a lot of people wanted this. They wanted the shoebox version of the CompactLogix. You even get the price now. It's not as inexpensive as the MicroLogix, but less expensive than buying all the components separately. You get a built-in power supply, you get the CPU, you get I/O cards. You could get it without the analog and high-speed counter, and some people would. But there was one flaw to this. Otherwise, awesome, perfect, and you could actually put a couple of expansion cards on it too. There was one major flaw that my OEMs ran into all the time, and that was the lack of a compact flash card. So this is an OEM product, right? Typically, you're going to use this if you're an OEM. You want to go low with the price as low as you can. You don't need a lot of extra capabilities because your machine only has so much I/O built in. And this unit, like I don't know why we've gone through this so many times. It seems like every cycle we have to go through this, but it did not have removable memory. So it had a battery-backed memory, but did not have removable non-volatile memory. Which to me, if you're an OEM, I mean, how else are you going to send the project? It's not like the CompactLogix software is very cheap to buy. So do you want to spend an extra, I don't know, $2,000, $1,500 to send every customer a package of software? Typically, you do not if you're a small OEM. So that was a major killer for this guy. But everything else about it, I really liked. It is a little big, but it's kind of the equivalent of what you would do if you bought all the parts separately. I really like the design. When you look in there, you can see all the individual cards. It looks like they were able to reuse the circuit boards from the actual regular cards. But in any case, really a big fan of it, except for the fact of that no non-removable memory. I even have one OEM that says, I'm just going to get you a free one so you can ship the whole unit out when you need to change the program, because what else are you going to do? So what else can I tell you about these guys? Let me see if I can get them all back in the camera here. I got some more stats. I did include a link to my article on this I wrote a few years ago. So if you guys want more information about it, and let's just take a look at some of the stats. So the first one came out in 2003. That's a long time ago, right? And these were so very popular. Although I got to say, when we talk about not the 3rd gen, but the 4th gen, it kind of blew these guys out of the water. As great as these are, the 4th gen, the 5370s were just a home run. And again, everything's backwards here, so it's hard for me to evenly space everything out in reverse. But in any case, so let's take a look at the article here. I'll leave the product up on the screen here and see if I can get my mouse down to the right screen. So actually came out a couple of years before the MicroLogix 1100. So that would have been the first MicroLogix with Ethernet. Great product. I wish they hadn't obsoleted it. That's also the only Ethernet MicroLogix that works with the free software. So in any case, but yeah, it came out in 2003. That's the L35E. It looks like the L35E. A lot of times they come out with the most expensive one first because, quite honestly, you may as well sell the most expensive one out the door and then work on making it less capable, via firmware or whatnot. In any case, it did use a no modem cable, just like all of the other serial ports that Rockwell Products has, because this is a DTE device, not a DCE device like a printer. So you're going to need to cross over a no modem cable. It did, any of them will work. CP3, any CP3 or no modem cable will work. It did take the 1769BA. We talked about that yesterday. Had that compact flash slot, which was just a huge upgrade from the L20 and L30 we talked about yesterday. The battery is on the left-hand side on these guys. This one there's a door you have to pop off. The other ones has that slide that I showed you yesterday. Let's see here. The L31 only had 512K of memory. That was usually good enough. 16 I/O modules and 4 tasks. Okay, so yeah, the 4 tasks, I've never run into that being a problem, although it is very limited if you're doing, again, you get 16 I/O modules. Do you need more than 4 tasks? I think that would be very odd. The L32s came with 768K and supported 30 I/O modules and 6 tasks. And the L35, let's see here, the L35, did I write it down? Had 1.5 or 1.5 meg of memory, supported 8 tasks, and took 30 modules. So 6 tasks versus 8 tasks, and then double the memory for double the memory for the from the 32 to the 35, but the same amount of local I/O cards. Let's see. Yeah, distributed I/O on the Ethernet, which was great. Of course, that was not an option with the and that really kicked in. It kicked in the Ethernet I/O, because in ContractLogix you could use DeviceNet, ControlNet, or Ethernet. And but getting the Ethernet on the CompactLogix in 2003 meant everybody was looking at doing Ethernet I/O. Yeah, and so those are all the highlights. Again, the article I'm looking at, you'll find in the link in the description. Of course, because this is the second edition, the second try of the show, it's not in the description of this show. I will add it after the show. But in any case, it's just at theautomationblog.com. I think it's CompactLogix-Gen-2. So with that, that is the CompactLogix second generation. I'm going to look in the chat, see if there's any questions. There are not. So if you're watching, you're like, hey, I want to come on and share something I learned. I don't care what the manufacturer is, as long as it's industrial automation. Yeah, I want to welcome you on. Of course, you have to speak better English than me, but in any case, yeah, just reach out to me. You can contact me, theautomationblog.com/contact. You can leave me a message on YouTube or LinkedIn. That's where all this is going. And we used to do all the other sites, but we got really zero interaction over there. So several other sites. So trying to, just because it's just me here. But in any case, also, I'll repeat something I said earlier, that I ran into somebody on Reddit who was trying to understand what they needed in order to learn about CompactLogix, like what they needed. And I want to show you that in each of my PLC courses, I have this free lesson, right? And I did this because, let me see if I can pull this up on the screen here. Yeah, so I did this because I don't want people signing up for my courses and then finding out they don't have what they needed to take the course. So this is lesson 102. Every one of my PLC courses has this, all the new ones, as I break my Micro 800. No, I didn't break it. In any case, what this is this lesson 102. You just click on it here, right? Anything that's a sample lesson you can take without buying. And this runs you through. It's like 20 minutes, and I cover everything you need to know. Like how to get free software, how much the software is if you want to buy it, best way to get samples and starter kits and all of that for all the different PLCs I cover. So I wanted to bring that up because I know a lot of people are like, and it also gets you, my teaching style. You can get to see my teaching style and all that. But I do that for Micro 800, MicroLogix, CompactLogix, ContractLogix, and the S7. And as I learn new things, I update those lessons. Those lessons, most of them were updated in November. I probably do another update in November for the new prices. But in any case, and if there's any requests, I did have somebody asking, how do I access tags in a Micro 800 from a SCADA package? So maybe when I get done the generations of CompactLogix, I'll do that. Also, I wanted to show you the picture. I'll have it ready for you tomorrow I am setting up another studio because I got a bunch of products I want to cover with you, but this is kind of in the way here in Studio B. So I'm setting up what used to be the office in the Studio A again, and so I can show you other products besides what I'm filming my courses, my updated courses on and lessons on. And with that, that's all I got for you today at lunch. I hope you guys had a great lunch. I hope your day is going well, and I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.